In this video, we are going to look into the chaos parameter and how you can use it in MidJourney intentionally. So the point here is that chaos parameter really creates chaos. But if you're using the right numbers, you can tame it and you can get closer to the results that you're trying to get. In this video, I'm going to show you how. I was able to clarify the effects of the chaos parameter after running a controlled experiment. So here is what I did. I tried to reduce the number of parameters as much as I could, so then I would be seeing the effects of the chaos parameter in a clearer way. For that reason, I used the sameseed parameter, which I'm going to explain in a moment. The second thing I did is I used modern architecture as the keyword, as the main keyword in the study. It became really handy because it helped me create easy to perceive visual features and then track them on the road. At the same time, it enabled me to refrain from creating visual ambiguities or the elements that would create visual ambiguities, such as haze, too much reflection, fibers, particles, and so on and so forth. As I move forward in this video, I will explain how chaos parameter really works and why it is so essential to use it hand in hand with the stylize parameter. This is going to be essential. And then eventually at the end of the video, I'm going to share my findings and clarify what the next steps could be for you while putting this parameter into use. What we are seeing here is the targeted style that I was looking for. This is an interior photograph taken from the university that I attended for my Bachelor of Architecture degree. And you would see that it's using a lot of modern architecture elements, and it's pretty expressive in the way it displays those. So the question is whether or not we can replicate, a similar visual style on the MidJourney side, and whether or not we can adjust, the amount of complexity by using the chaos parameter. This building was built by Çinici architects in 1956 in Ankara, Turkey, and it became one of the best examples of modern architecture at the time. What we are seeing here is that there are 4 images on the left side from the photographs that are taken from the building, and on the right side you're seeing the sum of the images that I generated in MidJourney. You would see that the images are kind of significantly different from each other because they are displaying different densities of materials, different densities of shapes and texture. So let's see how these were all achieved. First of all, I'm going to share you the template that I used in this study. Remember, this PDF is again available for you in the link below, so go and download it for your own studies or for teaching other people. So I would be happy to see that. What's going to happen is that on the horizontal axis, I'm going to show the changes that are happening as you change the chaos values from 0 to 100. And on the vertical axis, I'm going to show the effect of the stylized parameter. Of course, because this is a 2-dimensional matrix, you will be able to see what happens, as you go really high on the stylize and as you use a really high number for the chaos parameter and so on and so forth. So that's what you're seeing at the background with the green and red colors. But at the same time, I included the main prompt that I used in this study at the bottom of this page. So you'll see that I'm saying sameseed 78401. So that's the seed I used. It's a random number. You can use a random number while using the sameseed parameter in your prompt. But you're going to realize that the image on the left side is not using the sameseed parameter. And the 4 images are, compared to the one on the right side, are significantly different than each other. And if you look at the 4 images on the right side, you're going to realize that they are the proximity is much more, meaning that they are using that sameseed that I indicated as a parameter. And even the images, the 2 images at the top are extremely similar, and the images at the bottom, 2 images at the bottom, are even more similar than the other ones. But what happens here is that by constantly using sameseed, I was able to, keep the exploration or visual convergence to a minimum, which was, generated by MidJourney's own random parameter. All right, with that, let's start. So first, I'm going to share a baseline image with you here, and you're going to realize that, again, it's not using the sameseed parameter, so these four images are quite different than each other. And then I'm going to share the four in which I'm using the sameseed parameter, and the images are kind of getting closer to each other. And the baseline, remember that for the baseline, the default stylized parameter is 2500. It's not 0, right? The stylized parameter runs between 625 and 60,000, which I included in the chart, and the chaos parameter runs between 0 to 100. Right? Let's consider that we are running in the default line first, meaning the stylized parameter is not being used at all, and it's a constant at 2500. And then we will keep increasing the chaos value as we move from left to right in this matrix. When we push the number to chaos 1, it's shifting the view to a perspectival view, but then it's kind of like, keeping a portion of the image really subtle while pushing the texture and parameters or the density of shapes really higher on the other side. And once we jump to chaos 5, you're going to realize that it is even more striking, creating more striking difference by pushing the density in the dense areas even more. And at chaos 10, again, you're going to realize that it is differentiating the flat areas and the dense pattern areas and increasing the pattern even more so. And then you're going to see the same change as you move from 10 to 20 and 20 to 40. What starts happening at 40 is that it is suddenly starts leaving the idea of the rectangles, which is in the, essentially rooted in the modern architecture, and it starts generating these curves. And even at, chaos 70, you see more of that effect, and it's leaving the architectural interior and the photography, and suddenly starts putting photographs on the walls of a building, I would say. At 90, it's increasing that effect. We are constantly keep losing the architectural space and start seeing more curves, more dense details. And at chaos 100, we are totally losing the space, and we are definitely getting something that is not fully rectangular. So just looking at this, we can say that, I think we are fine till chaos 40. Chaos 20 is super dense and, could be still used for the purposes, for the images that we are looking for. But beyond 40, I would say, we don't have much control over the image. So let's see, what if we only played with the stylized parameter here instead of changing the chaos parameter? Are the results similar or different? So you will see that at 625, we're getting really, really subtle colors and subtle compositions that are not pushing, neither the colors nor the shapes are being pushed a lot. At 1250, we're getting closer to our original images. Again, it's not as subtle as the previous one, obviously. And in the baseline, we're pretty much getting the visual quality that I was discussing a moment ago. And at 10,000, suddenly we are shifting to something similar to chaos 1. But what's happening is we have really much heavier colors, heavier contrast, and maybe higher resolution of textures or dense textures. At 25,000, we already don't have anything that indicates that's an architectural space anymore. It's rather colors, shapes that are kind of like packed together to generate a visual idea. At 50,000, it's changing a lot. We start seeing almost like a skyline, clouds. There's a bit of, like one image which is similar to what we were looking for, but it's still, I would say, already pretty far away from what we were looking for. All right, so this is step 1, right? So we saw that by keeping either of the values constant and changing the values of the other one, we realized that if we go with the chaos parameter, we're going to get some curves, like some paintings or photographs on the wall, and some interesting lighting, but nothing more than that. And we would lose the spatial feeling that would come from the architecture, keyword. And on the other side, keeping the chaos parameter constant and increasing the stylized parameter, we end up getting, like skyline photography or imagery, or images that are almost like watercolor like, which are again like composed of these rectangular shapes, but they're not necessarily again showing any architectural features. And then we can, try a couple of other things. What I did here is that this time I said, okay, stylize 10,000 is crazy enough. If you remember from the previous slide, stylize 10,000 was creating these high contrast images with, reflections. And I said in the next study, I'm going to use that number. And I'm going to push the chaos parameter. So here we are seeing we're going from chaos 5 to 10 to 20 to 40 and then to 70. What you're going to realize is similar things are happening. We are immediately losing the architectural space as we reach chaos 20, in which we get, almost two-dimensional or 2.5D, compositions. Suddenly at chaos 40, we are losing we are almost totally losing the earlier hints, the color schemas or the shape compositions that we were looking at. And similar effect is happening at chaos 70 as well. And as we move to chaos 100, what is interesting here is that from 40 to 70 to 100, actually at 100 we are going back to we're getting maybe more hints about modern architecture, or equally, let's say balanced hints compared to 40 and 70. So in this sense, I would say if you're stylized 10,000 for this study, the chaos parameter from 40 to 100 is returning really, really similar results. And there is not much you can really do by, like changing the parameters in that zone. So this is really important to understand, right? Because if you kept the stylize as default, then it would make a change. But now we're pushing the stylize to 10,000. Suddenly chaos is not doing much as we pass the value 40. And then I tried similar things. So what I did was, I pushed chaos 100 at stylized 25,000, 50,000, and 60,000 step by step. So what you're going to realize here is that at 25,000, again, the result was similar to maybe 10,000, maybe things becoming, different, and different architectural styles are merging. And then as you move like higher and higher in the pushing the stylize to 50,000 and 60,000, suddenly you start seeing maybe architecture, but it's not modern anymore. It's an, external shot of like towers, or you see some sort of like chapel-like forest interior, everything is kind of like getting blended, and you don't have much control over what's gonna emerge really. We can discuss a little more about this zone. So I got really curious about, the effects of chaos 100 once I reached the stylized 50 and 60,000. So that corner that we are looking into, which is polar, I would say, it's almost like one pole, one end of the spectrum. What we're seeing here is again things like almost 2D color, 2D rectangular color compositions, along with some architectural ideas. But again, like there is no coherence in the architectural visualizations that we are seeing here. So, and then I was really curious, and I said maybe there was something about a 60,000 style, 60,000, and I wanted to step back to 5999. And although the guide on the website is giving you 5-6 different parameters for stylize, I ended up getting, of course, very different results depending on the numbers that I was using. So I took that freedom to step one back from 60,000. And I would say the result was slightly different in the way that I got like less of color compositions and more of like more variety in the architectural examples that I was getting. And again, these were all happening at the chaos 100 level. All right, next one. So one interesting thing was, okay, again, I did the same study this time at stylize 1250, right, 1250, which is kind of like stepping back from the default value of 2500. And you would realize that I was getting cooler colors, right? So this is interesting. So the color palette turning from orange to bluish. And then as I move forward with increasing the chaos value, I started seeing that the style was still trying to stay at modern architecture, right? So it was still trying to push those rectangular shapes, orthogonal shapes, and constantly increasing the density of the pattern. So this is really different than the default value. If you can track what was happening at the bottom line, you will see that the curves were emerging at chaos 40, whereas here at chaos 40, you're still getting some architectural depth, some like, a corridor light behind, and then you're getting these, like really dense rectangular patterns. And then, interestingly again, but now expectedly, because we know that the stylize is keeping the style the same as much as, or, it's respecting the prompt more, we get super, super dense, textural qualities, colors, patterns, and so on, but it's still pushing to keep that architectural style that I was mentioning. And here we can go down again to stylize 625 and push the chaos to 100. And again, we are getting a similar result. But again, what is emerging here is that it is putting some elements that are not that rectangular, right? So probably it's looking into modern architecture and pulling those, other like elliptical, spherical, curvilinear shapes and putting those into the composition. So that was pretty interesting for me. The other thing that I wanted to control as I was doing this was again jumping back to stylized 2500, which is the default that I was mentioning, in which we were losing again the fully modern architecture style at chaos 40, and then I pushed and ran it at 70 again and ended up getting the same result again, right? So same result meaning again losing the style, losing those like rectilinear features that I'm always mentioning, which are about modern architecture interior, or I was looking for. And then we end up getting those curves again, okay? So here is the great learning here. If you want to, like push some sort of style and push chaos, like use chaos in your study, you need to go lower with the stylize. So you get the, the whatever your main prompt is, you can get that, but then you can kind of like play with the chaos happens in the details and smaller scale. So it kind of like keeps bombarding your image with fine color schemas and fine shapes. All right, here are what I pulled. This is exactly proving what I was trying to say a moment ago. Here at the top, we are looking at what happens at stylize parameter at 625 and chaos parameter at 100. You have those architectural features that I was mentioning. And if you bump the stylize to 60,000, you're not getting much about modern architecture, which was my main prompt anymore. All right, so looking at this chart, I said at some moment, okay, what I was looking for in the study would be around, stylize 1500 to 10,000 plus maybe, and the chaos would be around 1 to 5, not more than 5 really. So this was an interesting finding, and I kind of confirmed that with some other studies, which I can share later. But if you want to remain in the the visual world that you are kind of like exploring, you need to stick with like chaos 1 to 10 if you are not using anything for stylize. Okay, just keep that in mind. If you're using stylize, it's a different story. If you are not using the stylize parameter, it really helps to stay between like 1 to 10, and 1 to 5 is the most controlled that I realized. And I said, okay, what I'm looking for is between 1 to 5. So let me push that, and I marked that for you in this PDF. Here is the next step. And what I did here in the gray area is making a subchart and using the parameters chaos from 1 to 5, whereas I was pushing stylize it 770, 1770, 2770, and 3770, and 4770, and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to go too much into detail with these, but again, these are yielding similar results at 4770, I would say, stylize, and chaos 5. I'm getting, again, lots of details. It's dense compared to the other ones. Still able to keep the architectural, let's say, expression, but it's not spatial compared to some other ones. I would say, again, stylize like 2770 at chaos 4 is giving me interesting perspective. Interesting that similarly stylized 2770 and chaos 5 is giving me the result that I was looking for. Anything that I'm using below 2770 is maybe too subtle, not many details or visual features. They're kind of like lacking those. And then if I go higher in the stylize, then I'm getting maybe too much reflections and so on, right? So my guess after running this experiment was kind of right. I said, okay, in this chart, in this matrix, I'm trying to kind of like, I want my examples to fall in this zone, and I was somehow able to get those. All right. So with that, let's see what we really learned in this study. I'm going to share some values just to clarify how you can use the chaos parameter in your own studies. So from 0 to 5 is very controlled, literal take of the prompt. So if you have a main prompt again, and if you want to get the result you want, I would advise to stay between 0 to 5 and then see what's coming out. From 5 to 10 is still controllable with AI making. It takes a little bit of more creative freedom. Sometimes you get interesting stuff at like 7 and 8. But again, I think that is the moment that you should utilize the stylize parameter along with the chaos parameter, as otherwise you would totally lose the control. And 10 and up, as I said, the chaos parameter needs to be used in combination with the stylize parameter. Keeping the stylize at 625 and pushing chaos higher will produce intricate details, right? Like lots of details, lots of colors, dense patterns. They look really interesting. And if you're kind of like have a nice way of upscaling images, I think there is a lot that you can explore there. So you can create fine details. And I have a video showing how you can upscale your images on YouTube. And then if you are pushing both like the stylize about 20,000 and chaos to higher values, it will make the algorithm take a quantum leap, okay? So the quantum leap here is I'm referring to the linear thought, or the thought that jumps from one state to the other one, right? So I find the way we think, visual imagination, is not really linear. And David Bohm, who is a quantum physicist, actually explained this in a nicer way, but that's going to come hopefully in another video. Let's go back to our findings again. So there are two examples that are showing the two ends of the spectrum, which I shared again, staying very low with the stylize at 625, push the chaos, get the intricate details. Here's the image, or then go, to 50, 60,000, and then in stylize and chaos as you go higher will give you, like weird ideas. Sometimes they are contrasting ideas. So if you're looking for, like modern architecture, maybe it's going to give you, some examples that are not refined and clean, like more eclectic styles, I would say. Or otherwise, you can also like expect some totally random things appearing as well. And one important note again that I would like to remind you is if you're going really high with the stylized values, like 10,000 and above, the chaos parameter will be producing similar results from 40 to 100. So that's again the advice of like staying with the lower numbers will help you control the image. But again, if your aim is to totally getting lost, which is a wonderful way to explore visual ideas, you should just keep pushing the chaos parameter higher as well. I'm hoping this controlled experiment, which was really useful for me to discover how the chaos parameter really works in MidJourney, will also be useful for you for your explorations. And I have more to share about the chaos parameter because it's an interesting one. And I'm going to talk about it in another video probably. What I'm thinking is I tried this with some other visual explorations as well. So it wasn't only about modern architecture. I wanted to put it into use in more sophisticated explorations and see if I would be able to control them. But still, I believe squeezing the values between 1 and 10 is really helpful, and I'm going to share those findings again in another video. There's definitely more left to discuss about the quantum leap of the mind. I would like to refer to a conversation that was made with David Bohm in this sense, and I think somehow the chaos parameter in MidJourney might be trying to emulate the human thinking or the human minds or visual exploration meandering that's happening in our lives. So that would be an interesting discussion, and I'm gonna try to get to that as well. And let me know what you think about this video. Let me know what else you would like to learn about these processes, computational design, AI, and how it can affect our lives. I will be happy to bring the right resources and share my experience and knowledge with you. With that, please keep supporting the channel. That is the only reason for me to keep my days busy with these kind of explorations. Thanks a lot.